Hello. Welcome back to the Nancy Chu live stream. Um, Here's a funny story that just came up. I actually don't really have a name for my live stream. Sometimes I call it the High Vibe PM live stream, but today I decided to just call it the Nancy Chu live stream because we're scrappy like that. And
Stick with
usually,
it. I like that ring. Yeah.
usually I stream about product management related topics. Sometimes we also talk about spirituality, and other times we're talking about solopreneurship, and that's what today's live stream is all about. And I'm really happy to present Will to you all today. And let me tell you a little bit about Will. Will and I met on his podcast because he's a solopreneur and I'm a solopreneur. And Will is the host of a podcast that's called Solopreneur Stories. And that's how we met.
And I reached out. I needed to have Nancy on my show because I saw some of her content and I loved it and it resonated with me. So I took initiative and I said, Nancy, you're cool. Let's talk.
I think you're cool too, because his podcast, when I was on his podcast, we had a really great conversation. Then I invited Will to come onto my live stream. I don't have a podcast because I really do not enjoy the editing aspect of it. But with a live stream, I could feel like I could remove that resistance because now I no longer have to edit. We were just
The
go
editing's a
live
job.
and
You're
real
smart.
and raw and authentic.
Yeah.
So
And you don't have to pay an editor.
I don't have to pay an editor. I could, but I like the rawness of it. So that's what we're doing now. We're going to have a really raw and real and fun and authentic conversation about solopreneurship. But before that, I want to actually tell you more about what Will does in his big boy job. So Will is a founder of Gain Growth Consulting, and he helps startups and scale up B2B SaaS companies with their GTM growth strategy so that they could grow more profitably. So, Will, tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me on. It's great to chat with you again. Depends on the client and the challenge that they have, but I basically help them design a growth thesis. And what that means is they probably already have product market fit. They are maybe moving up market commercially, but they need help with their growing pains. So I'll come in and I'll help support them across loads of variables to make that happen.
What if they don't have a growth thesis?
That's a great question, Nancy. Then I help them design it. And it's very data driven. It'll look at the financials and the economics of the business and the category, their competition, particularly if they're like seed or series A, B, C, there's private equity voices in the room. So some of it is just like making sure that the funders have their priorities literally priced in to what the business is doing, but then they're able to go to the market to not just win clients and get revenue, but the magic of SaaS, software as a solution, service, is that recurring revenue ultimately has a profitable payback. So I can help them both on the marketing side of things of getting new customers, but then also on the account management and customer success side of things where we keep those customers. It's expensive to get a customer. Yeah. So ultimately you need to keep them around for a year or more with their subscription revenue so that they can become profitable and you get a good business.
So you said the requirement is to have product market fit first.
Ideally, and if they don't have that, I can help them with that too. That's usually a bit earlier stage in the startup space. That can be a lot of fun. It can also be very emotional and very scary for founders, especially like bootstrappy founders who are just like dying to get paying customers because they've dipped into their own savings to, make the thing work. But this, you can't just have a product that's in search of a problem. Your product has to solve not just a problem that exists, but a problem that the market will pay you to take care of for them.
Do you help them define what product market fit means? Because they might think that they have product market fit, but they don't really. Is that where you come in?
I can, and that depends too. Normally it's, there's some smarter definitions than what I'd be able to give you right now, but ideally it's like you're getting around $1 million in revenue from a similar use case in different applications. So it's not like a very lumpy revenue model where you have some high paying customers who use your product in a certain way, and then that's not like repeatable. It's in a nicely repeatable way that demonstrates stability in different use cases.
Got it. So this is what I meant by this is your big boy job
Mm,
versus the podcast that you
yeah,
started. It's called the
my baby boy job.
Solopreneur Stories.
Yep.
What motivated you to start your podcast?
Yep. So about a year ago, last March, I was laid off, and it was on like a Thursday. And by Monday, I had consulting clients. Super fortunate. I've been working in agencies for like 12 years, so I have a pretty good network. Folks found out that I was affected by the layoff, and they reached out to me. They're like, "Look, sorry, getting laid off sucks, but we want to work with you, and we have tons of projects. So if you want the work, let's work together." And I was like, "Yeah, like
Were these
sure."
your clients from before?
Clients and then former colleagues too.
Oh, okay.
So it just worked out. I was super fortunate, but it was very reactive. I was very on my heels with becoming a consultant, and I was grateful for the work, but it wasn't very like intentional. So I was like frantically reaching out to my network to understand, okay, who has been doing this, and can you help me? Like I have lots of questions, and I don't even know who to begin.
Help you be a consultant.
Correct. So I became like a consultant overnight. I was thrust into this world, and I was grateful for it, and I knew I could crush it, but I wanted to be like competent and equipped and proactive instead of just like, look, I just got laid off. I slept in the evening, and then I'm doing these, new projects and stuff. I want to make sure I do it the right way.
Yeah.
So I was reaching out to my network. This was all while there was wave after wave of layoffs that still continue, sadly. And I kept having these great conversations, and then I would 2 days later, someone would reach out to me and be like, "Hey, I heard that you're doing consulting. Like, I've kind of wanted to do that. Can you answer X, Y, and Z?" And I kept hearing myself say, repeat phrases of like, "I just talked about X, Y, and Z with Nancy. I wish I could like replay that conversation to you." You can. That's a podcast. You just record it and then you can distribute it so everybody gets in on the good stuff. I'll say also, just in my own research, I was just like trying to find good stuff that was out there. I couldn't find anything that spoke to me in terms of like style, substance, and format.
What's out there? What did you find?
There was some podcasts that were for like, solopreneurs and the type of work that I do, but they were dated. They were from like years ago, and stuff moves fast. 5 years ago is like ancient history. That's dinosaurs. So it wasn't the content that I found that like resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw an unmet need, and I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to wait for somebody to create the podcast that I would enjoy. I'm just going to create it myself.
Love it.
And then instead of just being a guest, I can be the host, and I can talk to whoever I want.
Yeah.
And just like, it's kind of an experiment where I just learn with an audience. I get to ask people the questions that I want to understand. And those questions tend to resonate with my audience too. So it's been a lot of fun.
Was it something that you always planned to do, to have your own podcast, or it just happened?
Not at all. I was literally walking the dog, and it just like came to me of like, oh, maybe I'll do this. It was actually, so the longer story is, I'm in these learning communities. One is called Reforge, and people are asking questions all the time. And I wanted to like contribute to these communities more instead of just like being there just as like a tourist. It was like, no, I actually want to meet people. That's like the point of being here. So I would do virtual coffees. I would try and, give like free advice to people who needed help.
Yeah.
And in the same day, I had 2 calls with these other community members, and they were like amazing conversations. So then after these conversations, I went and I walked my dog, and I just like checked in with myself, and I was like, I feel great. Why do I feel so great? And I was like, oh, because I just had these really great conversations where like I felt the impact. I helped these people out. It was like they got fired up at the end of it, and they're like, great, like now I can go and I can. One guy was like going to talk to his board for the first time. And like I've talked to boards and private equity companies. They're going to be high pressure. So I felt like it was like, all right, like high five. I just made a difference, and I felt like the impact with this person.
Yeah.
And I realized like, okay, I want to feel this way more. How can I do that? And I was like, well, if I just had these great conversations, maybe I just keep having these good conversations. How would I be able to have good conversations, but like make a day of it?
So
Podcast. So
you went after this feeling, this feel
absolutely,
good.
100%.
I love that. You're
Yeah.
honoring your feelings.
Yeah. I didn't, I mean, it's for my big boy job. So I had to be a big boy and notice that about myself.
I love that. So my second question is why the focus on solopreneurs
Mm.
for your podcast? Because you could create a podcast about helping companies grow. You could have a podcast about B2B SaaS growth strategies. But why solopreneurs?
Because I'm selfish. But also kind of seriously, like this started with me trying to almost like cheat on the test, um, of like, hey, like if you've done this and you've done this for 6 years, surely you've encountered stuff that I will encounter sooner or later in my own practice. So like help prepare me to like avoid those icebergs with your own experience. So, oh, Nancy, you there?
Yeah. Um,
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard something.
oh, okay, no. Probably
Yeah.
just music.
Well, good. Yeah, I'm vibing. I like it. It's I'll turn that up.
It's a new
So
feature. Yeah.
yeah, it was honestly just like selfishness. I saw that these conversations weren't happening the way that I wanted to learn from them.
Mhm.
So I decided just to like put myself in the middle of it and kind of create this audience and this community around this topic to learn from. And now, like, the market now has a ton of supply from
Mhm.
people who have been laid off and who have become more interested in becoming solopreneurs themselves.
Yeah.
So it's really like a podcast host's market. I can reach out to tons of people, and everybody's been super cool and more than willing to have conversations.
How do you find solopreneurs?
Part of it is on just like LinkedIn. I've even just like looked up like solopreneur or fractional leaders is another
Okay.
one.
Okay.
And I mentioned this on a lot of my episodes, but like I kind of take issue with the word because it's a bit of a misnomer. Without getting into that,
The word solopreneur?
yeah, because it's sort of like there's really no such thing. Like everybody has collaborators they work with, even
Yeah.
at the level of like technology. Like there's tools I use, so I reach out to like those support teams. Like I can't do my job without
Mm,
some pieces of technology.
mm.
It's not just me. Like it's and even within there, it's like some projects require creative support. I'm like pretty good in Canva, but I can't like edit videos.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, very directly working with other collaborators on
Mhm.
lots of stuff. So the way that I kind of use the word solopreneur is like someone who's intentionally not growing headcount. Like I
Mm,
don't have, at least I'm a never say never guy, so this might change tomorrow, but I don't really want to grow like an agency. I don't want to have like a 500-person
right.
company with like a big commercial building and stuff like that. I want to keep it me or as small as possible. And where it's not me, it's like on my terms. So like other freelancers, other subcontractors, but not like employees
Yeah.
where now I'm a manager, I have to do payroll and those types of things.
Completely hear you. I'm the same way.
Yeah, yeah, less headaches. Now again, that may change. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
it's usually on LinkedIn where I'm the most active. And now that the show's been going for a little while, people have been coming to me. So people have been reaching out saying like, "Hey,
oh,
I'm new to doing this, or I've been doing this forever.
okay.
I'd love to share my story." So I'm like, "Great, let's talk. And if we click, if we connect, then I'm sure that will resonate with other people out there too."
And what are some of your most interesting learnings about solopreneurship, or if there's a better word that you
Mm,
like to describe our journey from someone who's more experienced? Maybe one of your guests have shared
yeah,
something enlightening.
that's a great question. Um, maybe not, this isn't so much of a learning, but more of just like um, a confirmation. It's super hard. Like this sounds cheesy, but I have to tell myself this throughout the day. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And I know that that's like a cliche and everything, but like it's super hard to do. And I think from the outside, a lot of people might be like, "Oh, I can do that. Like, you're just working by yourself. Like, come on, that's got to be easy. Try it. Like, try it. Once you're doing it, you realize there's no shortage. The to-do list is just an avalanche. Like, there's
Yeah.
just constantly too many things to do. Part of that excites me and energizes me, but there's moments where it's overwhelming, where you do kind of have to just like have that honest conversation of like, can I do this? I don't know. And then maybe push through, or maybe you talk to somebody about like what you're going through and they help. But I can't overstate how hard it is. It's not just like, oh, I left corporate and now I'm just like, skipping through the day. You got to work really hard. You got to be
What
really
makes
hungry.
it so hard? Which aspects of it?
Doing everything, like, I don't want to say everything yourself, but like when you're an employee, you probably have like a sales team.
Mm-hmm.
When you're working on your own, you're the sales team. So it's not like, you're at an agency where it's like, all right, we got a new client. Yeah, where'd they come from? The sales team. If I get a new client, where'd they come from? Will.
Yes.
Like I did it all. And then not just, so, quote unquote, the sales team, let's go through the layers of that. Scoping contracts, negotiating prices, meetings, more meetings, relationship building, always being on. You can't just be like, look, I'm at my desk. When this project comes in, I'm just going to do this project and I go home at the end of the day. So sales is a big part of it. I take it super seriously. Like it's a relationship and a reputation based space.
Yeah.
You perform or you don't. It's very meritocratic. I'm very competitive. I'm my own biggest critic. I put a lot of pressure on myself. Like if someone has chosen me and they're going to pay me money to do something for them, I'm delivering.
Yeah.
And you can't be like, well, taking a sick day, the team's going to cover my back because, I got the flu or whatever. There's no team.
Yeah.
Will's working. So
Yeah.
like drink your chicken soup and, take a nap, but like you got to fulfill the promise that somebody trusted you with their own livelihood to deliver for them. If they don't, there's nowhere to hide. There's negative word of mouth too, and now that client maybe dominoes, and they may say like, it didn't work out with Will. That's taking money out of my pocket. That's hard to earn. So it's a lot of pressure on all fronts.
There's great learnings from doing everything on your own, and I love what you said. You're out there. You're not hiding behind anyone else. For me, as a product manager, before, I never really had to sell anything. Like you said, there's a sales team, there's a marketing team. I didn't have to do my own marketing. I probably needed to do internal marketing to get buy-in, to make sure my team is seen in the good light. That's internal marketing. But once you're out there, you're completely exposed, you're vulnerable. And now there's this sense of ownership, way more compared to being an employee. So that takes me to my next question, which is, tell us more about your mindset when you shifted from employee to solopreneur.
Mindset shift from employee to solopreneur. I'm very confident. I'm careful with that, because I don't want it to ever feel like uncomfortable and like dominant and arrogant in like an obnoxious way. But I had to like cultivate a different type of confidence with myself, because now it was not doing the stuff I knew I was good at. I got that. Like I can run circles around that.
Mm-hmm.
It was doing a lot of the stuff I had never done before, and I knew I wasn't good at.
Such as
full sales cycles. I built my own website by myself. Like it's a Wix, template, but like every little minutia thing was just like, oh my God. I was like, yeah, I'll take a weekend. And like a month later, I was still working on this thing like at night. You change one character and the whole page breaks or something. So like, I'm not a Wix expert. And then even trying to find my niche and my addressable market, the people who would work with me that I could deliver good work on. Initially, I made it way too hard on myself. I was trying to be too many things to too many people. I still kind of am, frankly. And it's hard to refine, find your place, and then develop like systems that are repeatable on your back end. Again, it's you doing the work.
Yes.
So if you can't run an efficient operation, have fun working 100-hour weeks. So the mindset shift, I think it was like tapping into this different type of personality of my confidence where at first it wasn't. I was just like, okay, I'm betting on myself in a way that I hadn't before.
How did
But
you work up
yep,
your courage to bet on yourself? That in itself is like, whoa.
yeah. Well, one was I kind of didn't have a choice because I got laid off. So, but
Oh,
I could have gone out and then just started applying to jobs
yes,
and trying to be an employee again.
yes.
But I kind of just like grabbed the wheel and I was like, you know what? Like, I've been laid off before. It happens. Like, that's a reality of business.
Hmm.
Why am I working so hard for all these other people?
Yeah.
Like, I would never, flake on a meeting with a client, but like I flaked on plenty of meetings with myself. Like, why am I, like working harder for other people? And I've never worked hard just for me. Like,
Mm,
it's easy to be told what to do by like a boss or a client saying like, I want this thing done by this day. Great, clear. But to then like do it to yourself, it's this open space of like, okay, what do I do?
yeah.
And that's hard, and I'm still working on that. I think that's probably going to be an ongoing thing that I speak with people every day and every week where they're similarly challenged with saying yes to the right things, being careful about like turning away good money, but also finding something that just like totally clicks and fits with them that the market will pay them for.
Mm. So looking back, if you hadn't gotten those contracts right away after you got laid off, would you still have gone down this path eventually? Was this something that you've always thought you might do, or it just all happened?
It was in my mind.
Mm,
I probably would have still been at that agency, like golden handcuffs. I
yeah.
was getting paid a good amount.
Mm,
I had a good title. I had good status. I managed a team globally. I
yeah.
traveled internationally. Like, it had good stuff. Like, as much as I might have complained about the role at the time, there was plenty of incredible things going for it. So I probably would not have gone out on my own. Certainly not in the way that I did,
Yeah.
because I kind of just strapped on my helmet and I was like, all right, I'm doing this. Like, I'm committed to making this happen.
Yeah.
I think I might have reached out to a couple folks for like full-time positions initially just because they were like right there.
Yeah.
But you can't have one foot in, one foot out. It's just not
Yes.
enough time. You can't
Did you try to
prioritize
do
everything.
both for some time?
Would I try to do both?
What did you try to do both? The looking for a full-time job and then taking contracts? Were you trying
A,
to
a,
do both?
yeah, a little
Mm,
bit. And that's also, I'm not one of these super diehard people who it's like, oh, I will never, ever, ever be an employee again. I'll
mm,
happily be an employee again if it's a cool company with
yeah.
like reasonable expectations and, fair pay and stuff like that. So yeah, where there was like warm opportunities, or when it came to me where people were like, hey, you should check this out,
Mm,
then I was like, sure, like what do I get to lose? Might as well keep my options open. But coming back to like mindset, that goes back to like, okay, so like, what am I doing? Am I going to be an employee? Am I going to go through these like rounds of interviews, or am I going to like grab the wheel,
yeah.
strap in, and I'm going to win doing my own thing? You
So
kind of can't do both.
to, I love what you said about the rounds and rounds and rounds of interviews that we have to go through. I see each and every sales conversation as just a different form of interview now,
Yeah.
which means I'm being interviewed all the time, which is a good thing. Being interviewed in a sales conversation to me feels good. But going through rounds and rounds of interviews toward the employee path, that doesn't feel good. Even though, I mean, to me, it's a personal feeling, even though they're both interviews.
Hmm.
I was wondering if you felt similarly.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I think when you're working for yourself, you kind of just get to like diversify,
Mm,
where you're putting all your eggs in this one basket. Now, like you might be interviewing a lot of other companies. In fact, you probably are, but it's almost like 100% or nothing. Like, you get that full-time role,
yes.
that's now like your full-time priority, or it's nothing. On my side, there's a bit more optionality currently, where it's like, look, like this might be a small project.
Hmm.
This won't make or break me. In fact, if I don't want to work that much, I don't even have to say yes to this thing. It's kind of
Right.
trivial. Maybe I'll say yes because it's a good relationship and I want to plant
Yeah.
those seeds and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think that, every sales conversation is an interview.
It's an interview.
Yeah, I do have a bit of a different luxury now where like I get to be a bit more choosy about who I work with
Love
because I'm not putting all my eggs in that one basket. So there's pros and cons on that too.
that. Leads me to my next question, since we're talking about mindset. What mindset and tactics work for employees, but not for solopreneurs?
Hmm. For employees, I think so like particularly in big companies,
Yeah.
you can you can honestly say things like, "Hey, not my job, not my problem." And you're right.
Hmm.
Like there's big teams who they may be, deeper experts than you are in that thing. You may be like conversant in it, but there are teams who are paid to figure out that stuff. So like it's totally fair and fine to be like, look, this isn't a will problem. It's actually a management problem. Hey, leadership, like you have to figure out how to fix this bigger systems level thing, and I don't have to worry about it. So I think that's like almost a good thing because you can stay in your lane and just like focus on your craft.
Yeah.
I think other things for employees, teamwork. Like you get to be shoulder to shoulder working on projects. Usually, again, like if you're like a bootstrappy startup, maybe not because there's just not as many people.
Mm.
But like working with, a functional team, you get to rely on each other.
Yeah.
There's relationships and friendships that can come out of that too. But it's also just like at the level of the work, there's some support there. So you really get to lean into that. Not so much on the other side where you're working by yourself. Like I have to go find those people.
Yeah.
They're out there. There's freelancers who do everything, but we're not like, under the same roof, working towards the same mission. It's kind of like, all right, we're in the jungle and we might have found each other. So yeah, I think employees have a bit more like clarity when it comes to literally what they're paid to do and when they can say, hey, that's outside my scope. That's more of a business problem than it is a individual problem.
100% agree with you. Also, we have a comment from Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy. Yes, to me, sales cycle equals interviews.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Um, and that's funny to me on a lot of different levels because I help product managers with their interview prep and I help them ace their interviews.
Right.
And now my mindset around interviews is a lot more different just because I feel like I'm being interviewed all the time, every
Mm.
day, and I'm getting rejected all the time, every day too. So, whereas before, the act of preparing for rounds and rounds of interviews, you get your hopes up and you put in all your hours. It may be a panel interview or whatever it is. You try to memorize your stories and you show up on your interview, and then the next day you're waiting for the result and you get called to the next interview. And then let's say you don't advance to the next round or you get ghosted and then this like huge letdown. It's really the ups and downs are really extreme in the employee case.
Mm.
But now as a solopreneur, because it feels like I'm being interviewed all the time and it feels like I'm getting rejected also all the time. And
Yeah,
so now that up and down is just not as extreme as it used to be. And that to me is the biggest mindset shift.
I would agree. I think like the frequency of them, you don't have the time to take it as personally,
Yeah.
and you're able to just like go on to the next thing.
Yes.
And just like see it for what it's worth. Like maybe it's a good thing. Maybe there was red flags you didn't see, and like not to be too cheesy, but like didn't work out, didn't happen
Yeah.
for a reason. So that makes space for what is around the next corner. Keep at it. If you
Yeah.
dwell, you're just suffering. It's like this-
Absolutely. And
yeah.
I love what you said earlier that you have a lot more optionality now, which really highlights whether it's a sales conversation or an interview, it's a two-way street. But
Mhm.
as an employee, it almost feels like you're giving all your power away to the hiring manager or the company that you're interviewing at. versus in reality, it really is a two-way street. We say this all the time that you're also interviewing them, but it just really doesn't feel like that when you're interviewing as an employee. But in solopreneurship land, that feels a lot more authentic because, like you said, you could choose to take this on or not.
Yeah.
Same thing
I
as an
think,
employee.
yeah, it definitely feels like less of an asymmetry and more like the, I guess, like power and the decision is more evenly distributed.
Yes.
I've said no to prospects where it's like, and I tell them why. I'm fair to them.
Yeah.
Of like, look, here's why, and I actually think you'd be, better off with someone who does X, Y, and Z type of thing. It's a bit more like honest and just like maybe brutally honest of like, because I've been told that too. People have been like, hey, like we don't think you have enough experience. We don't think that you could do this. It's like, oh well, I could fight. I could be like, no, I do, and I could prove myself. Or I could just like cut my losses and be like, fine, no big deal. Best of luck. If you change your mind, hit me up.
Same. And going back to my previous question, the mindset and tactics that work for employees, but not for solopreneurs. To me, one of the biggest differences is as an employee, I could escalate.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is
get HR involved or whatever. Yeah.
Bring in all the both leadership teams, work it out.
Yeah.
But now, as a solopreneur, there is no concept of escalation because I am, it's just me.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go.
Nowhere to hide.
No, and that just comes back to this sense of complete ownership.
100%.
No one else above me except just me. Total vulnerability. But in that sense, vulnerability leads to leadership. And now I am learning a lot more about what it actually feels like to lead yourself. It's self-leadership. I think that to me is a very good description to what solopreneurship feels like. It feels like self-leadership to me.
Yeah. Very honest self-awareness.
Yes.
And sometimes that doesn't feel good, but okay, so don't feel good. Who says you have to feel good? Don't feel good. All right. Like it's not going to change anything. You have to be like, you know what? That's actually not for me. I learned the hard way on this one and I feel it. So yeah, I'm not gonna do that anymore.
Yeah, I love that. All right, we have another comment from Jeremy. Let me bring that up. Do you feel like going the solopreneur route has accelerated your learning curve? And do you feel like it has accelerated the growth of your professional network?
Yes, to both. The professional network, I mean, I'm doing it constantly. And I do mean, it's not like hyperbole. I mean, like every day throughout the day. I don't really think of it as like pipeline, although it kind of is, but it's just like healthy networking with other people I can collaborate with and vice versa. They can collaborate with me, seeing what they're working on and what's working and what's not. That's like the premise of my podcast, to be like, what are you being challenged with? What's working? What's not? How do we do this? And then for my own development, 100%. Like it's, I took like college courses on like accounting. Do your own accounting. Like, do you like, oh, like I have an accountant. I hope the IRS isn't listening. I got it. It's all set. But yeah, experience is the best teacher. And you should be actually, and delegation too. There's a business principle of like, oh, hold up. This is taking an inordinate amount of time. I'm not an expert at it. Now I have to shop around. Now you're a buyer. Of like, great. So who would be a good accountant? Who can I afford? Tap into your referral network, figure it out somebody locally. So I'd say 100% on both of those things, which is exciting.
I love what you said about the accounting. I also looked up a bunch of YouTube videos. Like, which accounting software should I use? I am currently using Xero, by the way.
Nice.
Still so much
I'm a student of YouTube University for too many things. Yeah.
For me, I have learned so much. Way beyond my imagination. And for me, there's a difference between doing my what I've been doing, which is product management. I
Mm.
consider myself an expert in product management. But to coach someone so that I can help them get better and learn something new in product management is different from doing it myself
Yeah.
and helping others through my words, because that's what so what I do is I coach others, and the coaching is done through conversations. The learning for me is, oh, how do I articulate this? I never needed to articulate anything when I was just doing the thing on my own. But now that I coach others, there's so much art to picking the right words to describe the essence or the spirit, or the purpose of what is it that we do. And for me, the picking the right words was something that I really never have done in the past. But now, since I have to do my own marketing, now I have to do my own selling. I no longer have a marketing team, right? No longer have a sales team. Now I have to really pay attention to words that I use. And that to me is one of the biggest learnings. Now I feel like, oh, my English got really good.
There you go.
All right, we have next comment from Ellen. Hi, Ellen. Thank you for tuning in. What's the rejection versus conversion rate you would expect as a new solopreneur versus a seasoned solopreneur from your experience? Great question.
That's a fantastic question. Yeah. I think some seasoned solopreneurs who I've spoken with have like 100% conversion rate because it's referral. So like they have long-standing clients, they keep them, and then they refer them. So like they're doing no sales of their own, no marketing of their own. Somebody may come their way already saying like, we want to, this is, we're not even talking about it. We want to work with you. And it comes down to the person to say like, yes or no. So not in all cases, but I think it would be on the higher end of things. For myself and like other new folks, that's where it can be brutal. Like you can fall on your face. And this is why a lot of folks advise get your first client while you are a full-time employee, because once you have that first one, you have some income coming in. It might not, match your salary, but it's something. It's not nothing, but it's also proof of concept. And when you're out on your own, proof of concept is proof of you. Like you've done it. You have a referral. You've proven that you can do this thing. It's easier to get your second client. I will say it's brutal out there right now. Like ghosting is a thing. I have had people come to me saying, "Will we want to work with you? We have the money." They're a COO. They make the decisions. And they're like, yeah, like let's get on a call and talk about bringing you on. And then they ghost me. So ghosting, I think, is just like a thing that's happening. And that ghosting translates to like lower conversion rate. So I think, yeah, it'd probably fall where you'd expect. Or on the higher end, you're converting far more. You can be a lot more picky. And if you don't have any clients on the new end, depending on how good you are, depending how specialized you are, depending on how connected you are, it might be very hard for you.
I have a confession to make because
Tell
I
us.
don't know what my conversion rate is. And that is something that I feel like I'm not doing a good job with business metrics, tracking my own performance. And I have a hard time tracking and measuring this because I could track how many sales calls I have. And I could also track how many clients I have. That part is easy. But not all of my selling is done through sales calls. Some of my selling is done through emails, through messaging, and through commenting, through just, social media. And that I don't have a good way of tracking who's commenting on my thing, and then the conversation, it moved from comment to messenger, and then moved from messenger to an actual client. That I don't know how to track, and I don't. Well, if you know of a way of tracking that, let me know. But I don't.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I think it's almost something that like I personally wouldn't get too caught up in it. So like, even pipeline for my clients, when we're selling software, like it's just different. Like you're just following different like business metrics where I don't know that I need to have the science of my pipeline as like the screws are tight. I know X amount of discovery calls results in Y amount of business, that type of thing. I
Yes.
think it's good to have some awareness around it, but personally, I wouldn't get too caught up in it.
Mm.
I have an Airtable CRM. I built it myself, just like
Ooh,
scrappy. I probably could
fancy.
go in and like pull something out of there. Um, Maybe I'll do that after this just to see where where it is. But personally, I
I
don't know that I'd get too caught up in it. Yeah.
Yeah, at one point I tried to track it, as in everyone who pings me, I would put them in a spreadsheet, and then I would track. eh, in my head, I wanted to track the conversion rate, and I also wanted to track how long it takes to convert someone from the first touch point.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't keep it up. It's too manual, and so now I only track number of actual sales calls
Mhm.
versus actual conversion. And that right now is sitting at around 40 to 50-ish. But again, that's just part of the picture. So I can't say what my conversion rate is.
Yeah, yeah. This might answer the question a bit differently, but again, personally, I would pay more attention to like how much time do you spend in the qualification process, like on both sides. So I know when I have a lead come in, like I have a process, it's fairly repeatable, like 80%, because there's going to be some customization, but I set a clock. I have like a Pomodoro timer and like I have to cap it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm over servicing something that might not even land.
Yeah.
There's flexibility. Again, if it's a huge client, if it's, someone where, although I guess this is changing because even COOs flake in today's market, but yeah, just being careful with like your time investment. That's something that I would be more concerned with myself rather than just like, total conversion rate.
Totally agree. Okay, so I'm going to put your QR code up on the screen again. Tell us more about how we could connect with you and what happens after we connect.
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there, always looking for new internet friends. So please feel free to just like send me an invitation. I also just like love meeting people too. I set aside a couple slots every week just to do virtual coffees and just like meet with people.
Ooh, how much time do you
It's
set aside?
it depends. I'll do like 90 minutes a week. Sometimes sometimes it's zero, sometimes it's 90 minutes. But like 3 times a week I may make space for like a half-hour call. It's also when like I'm having my afternoon coffee and a snack. So like I've
Mhm.
kind of already budgeted that space to be like, okay, a little bit of downtime. I can just like talk to somebody cool. Um, if you're a new or seasoned solopreneur, freelancer, consultant, fractional leader, and you're interested in coming on the show, I give you an invitation. Check the show out if you'd like. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. The link is in my LinkedIn bio and stuff. If you work at a software company, yeah, I do free strategy calls too. Like the first 30 minutes of my whole discovery process that I mentioned I time is just a 30-minute free strategy call. It might be free advice. You might get enough of what you need and you can go on your way. Or we can determine, okay, are we feeling it? Is there enough of a connection and a need to continue this conversation to like, let's get the scope of work out type of a thing? So I welcome anybody who's like a founder or working at a company that has go-to-market or recurring revenue questions to reach out. Free half hours on the house.
I want to know more about the podcast. How does one become a guest?
Uh, Ask, like be a cool person doing cool work, and just ask. Honestly, I've had people just even this morning. I had 2 people in my LinkedIn DMs saying like, "Hey, I just saw your episode with so and so. It was really cool. I'm a fractional creative director." Like, great. I haven't spoken to any of them yet.
Love
If
it.
let's have a chemistry session. If we have a good conversation, I'm sure the audience would get down on it. I would say just ask. Not even for mine, but for anyone, any other shows that are out there.
Mhm.
Shoot your shot.
I love it. And how has this experience been for you? It's a live stream, different from a podcast. And now that you're sitting on the other side, being a guest, how has this been?
Very different. I'm used to
How
being
so?
like fully in control. I'm glad you were my first live stream because we had a great first conversation. I was very vulnerable. I was very nervous, but I knew I was in great hands with my friend here. But it was fun. I think uncomfortable at first because again, I'm used to being like, look, I'm in control. This is
Yeah.
my show. We're gonna do this. I also don't talk as much too, because my show is all about my guests. I just try and get the best stuff out of them. So different, but
Yeah.
you made it a good experience. I'm glad we
Thank
did
you
it.
so much. It has the live interaction, which makes it more dynamic than a one-on-one conversation that we would get in podcasts.
A little bit. We have eavesdroppers who are out there in the internet land. But
We do.
That's a fun part of it too. I like that.
Yes.
And I appreciate the questions from everybody who asked.
Thank you so much for coming on to my live stream. And those of you who listen now or later, please go ahead and scan the QR code and connect with Will offline, either to find out about his services or to get on his podcast. And if there's any other topics that might be interesting to you, also let me know. If there's a guest that you would like me to invite onto my live stream, also let me know. Until next time, see you soon.